Hey, what's up, guys? Back here at AWS reInvent 2025. Really excited to have Chris here from Incident.io. Incident.io is a platform that really helps people respond to incidents. We use it. We're a customer of theirs. Also, they use WorkOS. Also, I'm a small angel investor in the company, and we've been friends for years. So it's really like a special privilege to be able to have you here
Yeah,
today.
it's an absolute pleasure. Great to be here.
All right. So I guess first question, what is Incident.io for people that are not, familiar with it, not using it today?
Yeah, so I guess we would call ourselves an incident management platform, but really sort of we think about like helping people make their software reliable. So it's like help them find issues, fix issues, prevent issues, basically. So whether that's responding to alerts and paging people at 2 a.m. or using like AI to help try and figure out what's going on in the middle of an incident or communicating with your customers on a status page, all of that stuff is sort of encompassed by the platform.
Remember you guys had a really nice little one-liner that was it's like move fast when you break things.
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
that right?
it
Yeah.
is. Yeah, still
And
still the H1 on the
it's
website.
great.
Yeah.
And I remember because when we started using it, inevitably in a startup or when you're building product, things always break. Either you're shipping bugs or things go down. And it's really like from our customer perspective, it's really how we respond to those issues that gives them trust in the platform or not. Obviously if things don't go down, that's the best, but it's how fast you can communicate and respond and resolve things. And I remember Incident was the fastest way to do that for us as a
Yeah, and I
company.
think it's really interesting, right? It's something that not many people intuit, that software goes wrong at every company all of the time. Like, I think people just sort of naturally assume that things generally work, and that's actually not the case, which is really interesting, right? And if you look at, even if you look at like phenomenal like consumer products like ChatGPT, right? It is up and down like a yo-yo, right? And they are customers of ours. They use our status page, so when things are going wrong, they're communicating with people with that. And if you look at it, it's like things just generally break all the time, and that is not a comment on like OpenAI's reliability. Like they're a phenomenal company doing amazing things, but yeah, it's a really big deal that not many people realize is sort of like there's a lot of software that exists behind the scenes to help make these things sort of less of an issue than they should be.
Yeah, having incidents, I guess, is like a characteristic of success as well and growth, not just of,
Yeah,
an issue in the product.
I think that's it. It's like we speak with that internally. It's like it's a privilege to have incidents that matter that you have to respond to, and you have to have software to sort of respond to that effectively. Yeah, it's definitely a marker of success.
One of the things that we found, I'm curious if this is what other people do with Incident. It's so easy to create new incidents inside of the Slack integration with Incident.io. You literally just like slash command, create it. We found we started creating incidents for things that were not outages. We just started creating them for things that were like work streams outside of the normal cadence where we needed to have sort of a fast response to it.
Yes.
Like if we had like a billing issue with a key customer, we consider that an incident. The site's not down. It's not like this critical step zero, but it's like a interrupt driven way of working.
Yeah, I
And
think
having
that's
the workflow to be able to build for it was actually really, it's kind of because it's emergent behavior once we made it easier to create incidents.
I think that's it. I think if you look at like historically what people have sort of like thought of as incidents, it's like the once a quarter, a massive cloud provider has an outage
Right.
and stuff breaks,
Such as an unnamed one on October
Un
20th, where we
a
might be at their
hypothetical,
conference. Yeah, yeah, hypothetically, US
um,
East 1.
but
Rest
yeah,
in
it's
peace.
like that's where it came from, right? And so
Yeah,
it was always like clunky machinery to get things going. So it was like I'd be in service now, or I'd create a big Jira ticket, and then I had to spin up a doc, and like
right.
basically it was just like this thing that was done infrequently, which meant that no one gets practice at it.
It's
It's
scary.
it's scary,
Yeah.
it's hard. They have like loads of connotations around what an incident is, and I think like to your point, like we define incidents as urgent reactive work, and so it's like something that wasn't planned. So a customer billing issue, reactive and urgent because you have to jump on it immediately. And it's like if the cost of creating an incident is incredibly low, and the benefit of doing it is insight into a bunch of data points you might not already have. But it's just like how many times does a customer billing issue happen? Coordination. You need to do that in those sorts of situations. Often it will be like a handoff between engineering and support and other folks like that. And so, yeah, I mean, for like us internally, like we have literally dozens of incidents a day, which is potentially quite scary to someone who's sort of looking at a
An
software platform.
incident. It's like, oh,
Yeah, but
not
like for
really,
us, we have like Sentry plugged in that does all of our error tracking, and we put an enormous amount of effort into making sure that every Sentry error can be tied to a specific customer. And so the workflow that we have, which just is such a phenomenal experience from a customer point of view, is like something will go wrong. A Sentry error will come through. It will automatically create an incident in Incident.io. there'll be a channel, or the person who's on call for that product will be automatically invited in. They get paged at the same time. Then we deal with the issue. We will triage it, and we're like, great, this is a real thing. There could be something as minor as like a customer bumped into an error on the dashboard, right? We just had some API issue or something like that, and their workflow will be great because we're then connected into like a CRM with Incident.io. They can go straight to the Slack channel where that customer exists. They can go and be like, hey, notice you bumped into an issue. We're on it. It'll be in production in 10 minutes. And so that customer, they bumped into a thing. They were probably on their way in many cases to the Slack channel to go, hey, this didn't work. And our engineers were ahead of the game, have responded proactively. And people are like, oh my gosh, like how does this magic work? And I think that's the kind of secret, and that's where we're going when we talk about like reliability. It's like those level things as much as the massive outage that brings the entire internet down kind of thing.
That's pretty incredible. As you were talking about the difference between having an incident every few months, that's this big thing to spin up and it's like kind of scary and clunky, versus a dozen a day or a couple dozen a day, it actually reminded me of how people used to deploy code. People used to do code deploys seasonally or, whatever. And it was this big scary thing to do an upgrade. And we moved to this model of continuous deployment and integration, where now a code deploy is like, whatever, it's just constantly happening.
100%.
What if we need a new word than incident? Maybe that's less scary as a connotation.
I mean,
don't
like,
know.
it's
I know you have it on the hoodie. You guys already
well,
announced the name,
it's
but
hard to divorce
different
from the name,
connotation
but
of it,
yeah, no,
in the
it's a good
future.
point, right? It's like
Yeah.
I don't really know what that would be, but
Yeah.
there is some form of like reactive work type element to this kind of thing,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's a really fair
great.
comparison.
I love it. I want to ask more about AI. So you guys have obviously had a tailwind of like new AI companies getting built that are using incident, and then the way that people develop AI products, unreliable, endpoints they're connecting to. It's important to have like good alerting and incident reporting. I'm curious how you've evolved your own product. I've noticed there's a lot of like Incident.io is a pre-AI company. You guys are started, years before LLMs and ChatGPT, but you've incorporated a lot of this into the actual workflows and the product experience. Curious if you can like talk about a few of those things and how you think about product development with AI.
Yeah, obviously huge subject AI. It's
Yeah.
hard to escape. So I guess a few things. Like we were started pre-AI, right? So when we started, there was no ability to go and ask an LLM to provide a summary or do things like that. So we were pretty quick off the mark on adopting those things. There's a bunch of really natural slot-ins of like LLM technology into like our product. So you have an incident that's been running for 2 hours and it's hard to sort of understand what's going on.
I use this one of my favorite features. I wake up in the morning, incident summary. It's like, all right, team's already on it. I don't have to back scroll, 100 messages. It's great.
Yeah, it's sort of like, it's the obvious stuff, right? It's the
Yeah.
like one shot, a prompt that goes off with like a bunch of context. It's like, give it back to me in a format that's consumable like this. So we have auto summaries, incidents that get nice names, so you don't have like these garbled like technology like laden names and things. So a bunch of like nice stuff, but like I would sort of characterize that as like the sort of the most basic application of AI in a product, right? Like AI sprinkles across your product. We then have taken a really big step into like, well, what is like the art of the possible with AI in our products. And so if we look at where like the most costly aspect is of incidents, like it is the actually trying to figure out what is going on. It is the kind of thing where as an engineer, you're paged at 2 a.m. and the first thing you do is you open Grafana and you open your logging tool and you open your deploys and you go and check and you sort of just like trying to figure out and assimilate like a bunch of data points. And then when you sort of figure out what it is, you might be like, well, what do we do? Have we had this before? Have we had similar things like that? Has anyone been talking in Slack about, deploying something like this? Have we got any changes to a library that's shared? There's like all of this very, very common stuff that's like very expensive for a human to do. And so that's where we've been focused now for the last like 12, 18 months. We've had a team whose mission sort of was given to them of essentially like, can you help us massively, massively reduce the amount of time it takes to get from an alert going off to an understanding of what you should do next. And so the product, right, as we have it now, basically has direct connections that we built. You can sort of think of it as like a multi-agentic system with a kind of orchestrator and a bunch of sub-agents that it can sort of go and do all the sort of the work. And it goes off, farms out, does all the work, sort of brings that back in, aggregates that, tries to come up with a hypothesis for like what it's seeing, what the sort of probable causes are for that, what the next steps are that you should do.
Love
And
it.
on the sort of simpler end of the spectrum, it will also then raise a PR for you to actually fix the thing. And I think, it's phenomenally
That's
complex.
like end to end.
It's
It
yeah,
really is like
and
full life cycle.
it's such a difficult problem. So like, I mean, we were 2 weeks into the project, like the team had sort of done the obvious thing of like load of context, everything into like a prompt with like a tell us what's going on kind of thing. It flat out, it looks incredibly impressive. in that 2 weeks, we were like high-fiving. It was like, oh my God, this is going to be incredible. And then we started using it ourselves in our own instance. It was utter garbage, right? It was like confidently like telling us like the wrong things or just obvious things, and there was no way to debug what it was doing, what it was seeing, all of that stuff. And so there's been like a big development cycle for us of sort of building, throwing away, learning. We realized that it's impossible to build AI products without some form of ground truthing behind the scenes. So we have built an enormous amount of like back office systems so we can say, hey, over the last 100 incidents, like what was the actual thing that caused that? And then building the system that allows us to kind of rerun our system across those as we make changes to go, has it got better? Has it got worse? So I think this is it's super interesting to me in the market, right, as well, because it's so easy to produce a convincing demo. It's really hard to discern what is snake oil from what is like really good product.
Right.
So a lot of work going on there. Yeah.
Very last question for you before we wrap up. We're here at re:Invent. You guys were here last year, had a booth as well. What is re:Invent to you? What are you seeing here this year that's different?
I mean, unsurprisingly, like it's hard to escape AI being the thing at re:Invent, and
Yeah.
so there's an enormous amount of conversations we are having around that, and sort of there's there's like vendors coming up all over the place trying to sort of do things with incidents. So it's a phenomenal conference for us. It is a place where like builders are building and sort of coming and looking for ways to deal with like the inevitable sort of like conclusion of AI developing as well, right? Which is, the faster you ship things and the less context you have on that when stuff does go wrong, the more you need to turn to tools to be able to sort of like navigate those and sort of fix them faster, kind of thing. So it's a great conference. Love being here. Expect we'll be back maybe this size booth next year for us.